We are live. Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. This is the After Glow live recap podcast. I'm Syya, the co-host, and Erin Gregor. Hi, Erin. Someday I'll get this right.
No, I'm just talking on mute. I was saying happy Friday and good morning. I'm still getting my brain together. I'm sorry. I need more coffee.
That's fine. That's fine. It's been a big week actually, but so we are Innovation Media Enterprises. We are a full production podcast and marketing strategy firm. We are also the Dallas co-chairs of the Global Leaders Organization, and that's where GLOW comes from. Global Leaders Organization. Today, we are featuring a wonderful GLOW member. His name is Emery Geosits. Emery, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Unfortunately, I'm not in Dallas today. I'm in St. Mary's, Ohio. It's a little cooler.
I was going to say, don't say unfortunately when it's like 97 degrees and our AC's out this morning. So that's fantastic.
Ooh. No, it is kind of nice here.
Oh, that's funny. You should mention that, Erin. Our AC went down for upstairs. Not the downstairs, but the upstairs is down. So if you start seeing me sweat profusely, you guys, it is like getting pretty warm up here in my office. So, Emery, welcome. You are a new GLOW member. And just real quick, I just want to ask you, what exactly is EG2IT?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So EG2IT is an IT consulting firm, which it seems like in the IT world, everyone can say they have some capacity of consulting. EG2IT is primarily focused on enhancing our global footprint. So we have many partners around the world that we bring both products and services to in the realm of cybersecurity, software asset management. We do education around cybersecurity with a partnership with the University of South Florida. But our core business is really just meeting customers' needs when it comes to IT, kind of them behaving the way they'd like to and us adhering to their way of wanting to do business as opposed to having them fit in ours.
Got it. Well, it sounds like you pay a lot of attention to customer needs, right? The business requirements, more so than, let's be honest, sometimes with technology, we've got a lot of cool toys we want to play with and implement.
For sure, for sure. And a lot of the requests from our customers come from can you do X? And we just do X. We've been in the team has been in the industry on average for about 20 years. So I've got very experienced people on the team that have lived many lives when it comes to either the manufacturer community, the OEM community, just straight up reseller sales, who have all experienced these issues that their customers are having, and we know how to fix all of them from experience. So
wow, that's actually kind of tying into our featured speaker this week was Mr. Joel Peterson, former chairman of JetBlue. He's also an adjunct professor at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, and he's got his own, he's a founding partner of his Peterson Partners organization, invested in, a few startups, and successful investor, author of the Entrepreneurial Leadership. I could keep going, Erin, and I feel like I'm not going to get it. It'll be like the end of the 30 minutes by the time I finish whatever Joel's done with his life. But that being said, Joel Peterson, folks, he is our topic of conversation today. So, Erin, I know you've been quiet there. Sorry. What did you think about Joel's discussion today or yesterday?
Right. So I'm going to apologize because, full disclosure, you and I interviewed him right before the GLOW episode for our podcast, Innovation Calling. So I feel bad because what he said on our podcast and what he said on GLOW just kind of like intermingle. So if I say something about the GLOW presentation and he really said it with our interview, I apologize. But overall, you meet someone with that kind of success and you don't know what you're going to get, right? And just such a gracious person, so smart, so many amazing just tidbits of advice. And like he was saying to us on our interview, like, you have to see the movie a couple of times, I believe is what the analogy he gave, and being able to have that experience and just to relate to that. I learned so much between the two conversations. It was really an honor to be able to talk with him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Emery, you did not get to have an hour-long podcast with him prior to. So with fresh eyes and ears, what was your initial impression of the fireside chat with Joel Peterson?
Yeah, I thought it was great, and a couple of things I focused on word-wise was humble. He seemed, you would never expect this guy to have been the chairman of JetBlue. And then a couple of questions we asked him around challenges he's faced. One of the more miraculous ones is that they tried to launch the company on 9/12,
Yeah.
which is the day after 9/11 back in that year, and they had to revamp their whole launch strategy because of it, including equipping the planes differently. And he just seemed very graceful, very humble in the way he approached things. One of his leadership things he mentioned that I honed in on was he said it wasn't about me. And in the leading that I've done of organizations, that's a huge, really, probably the best, I think, attribute a leader can have is not making it about themselves, but rather making it about the people that they support and they work with. And he certainly showed that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the long career that he's had and the relationships and of people that he's built up over time, you have to make it about others. Otherwise, you're not going to create that community within yourself, for yourself, and with others. Yeah, 100% humble. Considering he's got 7 children, do you think you guys having that many kids forces you to be a little bit more humble?
I've
Or
got 5,
crazy.
so
Yeah, I don't think kids make you humble. I think I think it takes a very strong person to come out, and Emery, like yourself, to come out. You seem semi-normal, at least, right? Having all those kids, you're doing a great job, whatever you're doing. I don't know, but yeah, no, I mean, to know that and the thing is with his kids, Emery, I don't know how old your children are, but like for him, like one of his sons, COO for sure. I don't know if he's up to CEO, but I mean, raising really amazing kids too at that, not just, getting them to 18, but actually, great kids at that. It's amazing just to hear how he set a plan, not just for his businesses, but for his family too. Like I hate to use the word strategic in raising your family, but it wasn't by happenstance.
Yeah, I would be the opposite of strategic in raising my family. I've got a 23-year-old and a 23-month-old.
Wow.
So yeah. And actually, you talk about having a COO in the family. It's the 23-month-old. She's runs the show for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I used to not make fun of people, but be shocked when people say, "Oh, I've got 5 kids." Like, who does that? And then I'm like, "Oh, I do that." So yeah, five kids, but no real plan. We just go with the flow. They lead, we follow.
Yeah, pretty much in our house too.
But that's the funny part was this was actually mentioned in a different interview, not even our podcast of Innovation Calling, Erin. But he actually had mentioned that when he had his kids, he realized he had to have much more structure, and by having set rituals and discipline, it kind of flowed naturally, such that even though the kids were kind of dictating a lot of their paths, every day, if you will, there was still an overarching goal, if you will. And I thought that was kind of funny that he just applied business applications to the way he ran his personal life in that context.
Yeah. And I'll give another shout out he mentions this in the book, but he talked about it with us too, was the boundaries he set as a father and a husband. It wasn't, okay, I'm going to, have 7 kids, but I'm going to become a CEO and then hopefully I can connect with them when they're in their early 20s, right? Just this blink. He was very told the CEO of a company he was working with, like, sorry, I can't come in on a Sunday. I promise I need to spend time with my pregnant wife. And taking those chances to put a foot down and set those boundaries and not waver on them and still get to the level he did is amazing to me. Because a lot of times we look at women and we say, how do they balance it all? That's the question we ask women, but we never ask that to men, and you'll see failed marriages happen. You'll see children who really don't know their father, and we just kind of, okay, yeah, that comes with the territory of being successful. But for him to be able to say balance is extremely important to me was very inspiring and admirable.
So he actually made a comment about that in the book, and Entrepreneurial Leadership, and it was a juggling analogy, right? And we've heard all that term, right? Juggling work-life balance. He calls it work-life harmony. But he said, you know what? When you're juggling, rubber balls bounce, right? And so if you're doing it right, you're going to juggle no matter what. That's just life. But ensuring that you're using something that is more resilient, that you've got the great basis for it, a rubber ball, for example, it will bounce back up and you can retrieve it and do it again. But if you're juggling with glass, it breaks. And that's where he was so sincere about his desire to ensure that he doesn't have a glass household, if you will, that it's a rubber household, that no matter what happens, they're able to bounce back together and continue, if that makes sense. I just like that analogy because you can't have a glass relationship, right? A fragile relationship. It will go and diminish in some capacity, personally and professionally.
I think it has to be very deliberate also. Like, for example, I've learned over the years to block an hour in my calendar that no one can have access to. That hour is dedicated to me calling the kids or me having some interaction with the children. When I traveled as often as I used to, I'd make sure that I was able to talk to the kids during that hour. My business partner, Emmanuel, every night when the kids are right about to go to bed, he looks at his watch, he knows it's that time. We could be at a client dinner, or we could be doing, about to enter a meeting or doing something like that. I know, and he knows, he's going to make sure that he says goodnight to his kids. And that's hugely important. The kids value it as much as he does.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. Erin, was there another point, either in the Innovation Calling podcast interview or the GLOW discussion, that popped out to you?
Again, I can't remember if we talked about it in GLOW. Those 2 hours just kind of meshed, and I completely apologize. But he talked about the 5 points, and I should have the book up. I don't know if you have those, Syya, but the 5 points of a leader, or the different perspectives of a leader, and the true kind of unicorns have those 5 as one. But sometimes we may only have 3, but we have to understand that we only have 3 and hire those 2. And he talked a lot about hiring for what you may not possess in a quality or something. And I really appreciated, and again, I apologize that I don't have a, see, if you have them, do you want to list them off?
Yeah, I have it actually in front of me. It says 5 distinct styles of leadership. And by the way, you can find these 5 bullet points and further detail in the book, Entrepreneurial Leadership. Number 1 is the presider. Number 2 is the manager. 3, administrator. 4, pure entrepreneur. And 5, the politician. And each one has different skill sets that enables a company and organization to endure in the long term. So it's not just simply leading to lead. There's actually much more long-term benefits and for the organization. So there's a question, and so I don't think we went into massive. He did mention it in the fireside chat, Emery, but he didn't go into massive detail on it. Did you pick up on these 5 leadership points? Because he had mentioned the politician.
Yeah, I did. And it's very interesting because running our own company right now and coming from a very large company, a multi-billion-dollar company, looking for those people on your team and adding those pieces is vitally important. There are roles. I would find it very difficult if I was a solo entrepreneur, because there are a couple of those points that not only don't I have, but I don't think they're going to come. Like, I can't learn those things. And my business partner, in the case of EG2IT, has those natural abilities around operational, financial, those things. And clearly, everyone who's ever worked with me knows I got the politician thing down. It's really the other things that, that complement that. And even at the large organization, when you're building a management team to support 250, 300 employees, that doesn't go away. You still need those levels that you can't deliver on your own. Of course, you're going to influence those folks to make sure they're doing the right thing and following your leadership style. I think one of the things we commented on that he commented on was when he faced challenges. After you face one significant challenge, the other challenges kind of become the same game plan. You face this one, this is what we did, this was effective. Oh, we have another challenge, let's go at this the same way. And that's where those important components in your own personality and your own skill set and those of your team come together, so it becomes somewhat repetitive. You know how to respond, and you know what's next when things like this happen. But I remember him talking about that significantly.
And I think that was a really good question too that was posed to him, because as with life, everything's unpredictable, right? We don't know what's coming. But if you've got your core values, which he did emphasize quite a bit, is as long as you know your core values of who you are, what you embody, and then you extrapolate that out to your team, and everyone understands their mission, right? And the roles everyone plays. When things happen, it's easier to move that ship and pivot, if you will, because everyone understands what they're doing, and they also can rely on you as a leader to be consistent on those, based on those core values.
And they have to be empowered. As a leader, you have to be willing to let go and literally allow them to run it, allow them to do it, and have that faith that when you empower them, they're going to do the right thing because you've put the team together that way.
And I think it all circles back to his humbleness, that we really, like, you have to be humble and say, I know this isn't my strong suit, or I know that you're smarter than me in this situation, and I've equipped you with what you need to have in order to make this decision, and I need to step out and let this happen as a leader, and take responsibility if it doesn't work, but also raise the people up within your company to be able and empower them in order to be able to do that. And I think you have to be extremely humble in order to be able to successfully do that.
Agreed.
One thing that we haven't mentioned, and I know he mentioned quite a few times, was trust. Trust is a base camp for everything that he kind of builds the premise of his book on. Is actually he wrote a previous book as well, and I don't have it on my offhand. I apologize, Joel. I think it's Top 10 Trust something. I'll look it up. But that's the whole thing about trust. Have you ever worked in an environment, and this could go Emery or Erin, where you absolutely did not trust your manager or leadership?
Go ahead,
Yes.
Erin.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes watching leaders make decisions for money over what's best for not just employees, but what's best for the companies. I've been in several of those positions in my career, and you don't trust them at all. It's just about like what's best for the bottom line, but it's not good at all for the company. So yeah, I've been in several situations. Could write a book on it.
So my contribution here, and if there are any of the folks that I've had the pleasure of working with in my past on this particular segment, they know, and they're probably laughing out loud at that scenario. I think the most important thing when you're in that scenario as a leader is to separate your organization from what leadership's doing. So if you as a leader don't trust your superiors, your team never needs to know that. You need to make sure that you protect them, that you're giving them the information to make them successful, and you bear the slings and arrows, if you will, of a leadership team that you don't trust. And you try to navigate it and do the best you can. And so in the past, when I have had those experiences, it was my job to insulate the people who had to do the job in the grassroots from the inabilities of leadership to execute or to really kind of progress.
So that's interesting then, because if that's that case, then if you're having to rely on a bottoms up type execution, isn't that, do you think it's going to fail ultimately if the ship isn't right? You could be rowing all day long, but if the ship itself isn't effective, is it a fruitless effort?
So we were wildly successful as an organization in our bubble, if you will. Successful in a couple of ways, and not necessarily, we were successful financially, don't get me wrong, but we were successful on execution. our team knew exactly how to behave, how to treat customers, how to execute while swimming upstream the entire time. But to your point, ultimately, there was a particular part of the business that failed because they couldn't get there. The leadership couldn't get there. They couldn't understand it. It wasn't a worthwhile investment for them. Unfortunately, in the long run, they paid the price for that. And some other company came in and took out what they were really designed, or what we were trying to design them to do. But really, the team was still wildly successful. And again, I think it goes back to the measurement of success, right? Did we crush our numbers? Did we really create a good career path for people? And did we make people feel grateful every day for the company they worked for, while shielding them from what leadership was doing? And I feel like that we were able to create that.
Good point. So there's a question here from Leah McLean. She asked, what are your thoughts when he spoke about negotiations are serial, not episodic?
Well, they're going to happen in so many capacities, right? So dealing with, I go back to the idea of not treating them all that uniquely. Like if you have a game plan for every single one of the negotiations you have to go into, you know how you are going to behave in them. You know how the team that you've put together is going to behave in them. It should become second nature on how to approach them. So while they're serial, that's the whole point. You know how to address them with each one that comes up, each time it happens. If they're episodic, that's a different story, because I don't think you could always be fully equipped for that kind of scenario, if that makes sense. One thing he did say that he said was vitally important, and again, anyone who's ever worked with me knows this: humor and optimism. I mean, you can solve so many issues and concerns by coming into a scenario with those two things. If you're optimistic, your team knows that they should be optimistic, working together. And even when bad happens, and there's no really such thing as bad, it's just a different challenge, then you know what to do, right? You know how to handle it. You know that this is going to turn out right. And the optimism around that, and trust me, we laugh a lot, is it will get you there.
No, it's interesting you bring that up, because in this discussion, like Joel brought it up, Jean-Claude brought it up, like
Jean-Charles,
sorry, I was talking about Les Mis, but it was all about optimism, and like great leaders are optimistic. Like bad stuff is going to it's 2020s, just loads of them, and it's like, in order to lead in that, like, you have to have optimism. If you're going to take chances as a business leader, you have to have optimism that it's going to work out. And I agree, like, everybody who works for you has to feel that too, because they're going to lean on you much more heavily when stuff starts to, get a little uncertain, and you have to be, living that, and they have to feel comfortable with that under you. So it's been brought up several times by many great leaders.
I agree. Sorry, I'm trying to read comments at the same time here, which is really bad for me because my ADD. Egbert, another great GLOW member, has made a comment here. He said that episodically serial, as every negotiation is different, even if it is done 100 times over the same topic in industry, which I find interesting on that. Episodically serial. Egbert, I'm wondering, you guys, are we saying that it's like a standalone, but in a progressive? Wouldn't that just be serial then?
I'm trying to get the difference in what he
Yeah,
said.
that's what I am too. But that's okay. So yes, you could be optimistic though as a leader, right? And it keeps everyone's spirits up. But if it's standing on a vacuum where there's no real basis for that optimism, couldn't you lose credibility then? If, let's say, for example, situation is very bad and you're smiling through it all as a leader, could you lose credibility?
You could, and I think that's where the truth comes in, right? We said be truthful with your organization, be as truthful as you possibly can, be as transparent as you possibly can, because they'll know when you're not telling the truth, or they'll know when it's fake optimism. If you're genuine from the start and you build that trust, then you could tell them the truth. and say, you know what, this isn't a great scenario, or we're going to lose this particular deal, or we have to go a different direction, et cetera. Ideally, if you're letting someone go for lack of performance and they apologize, that's the environment you've created. So when bad is happening, or expectations aren't being met and those kind of things, if you've always been upfront and honest with your organization, they'll know. They'll know when they maybe haven't done the right thing. They'll know when they haven't been successful. And it makes really managing that organization so much easier because there's no lies behind it.
That's true. So let me take a pivot back here a little bit here about, let me take a pivot. Sorry. Maybe I should have more coffee. In the basis of entrepreneurial leadership in the book, he says there's 4 major things that leaders must demonstrate in order to drive a successful organization. One of which is build trust, of which we referred to earlier. One thing I haven't said yet is set a mission. How important is a mission to an organization?
Erin, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. Just because I think a lot of companies go through the rigmarole, like, okay, checkbox, let's create a mission, but it's just a bunch of words that maybe don't mean very much. And so, yes, okay, creating a mission is important, but do your employees really know that? Like, is it really, like, is there substance behind it, or is it just a bunch of words? Those are 2 very different things. Like, and Apple is one of those great companies that lives and breathes what they are. And then there's other companies that, yeah, okay, we've got it on paper. So to answer your question, I think it's really important if it's done correctly. I think it's a waste of time if it's just some words that, okay, we're building this, we need to sit down, or just I've seen companies that it's so meaningless. Like, it's just because it's there versus it's like, what does that even mean? Like, how do I apply that to my everyday life? Emery, I love your viewpoint too.
No, I agree with you. I think oftentimes a mission statement seems to be more valued and more important to executives than it is to the organization. And so it's vitally important that whatever the mission statement is connected somehow to the people doing the job, right? To the people who are in the grassroots again. So if you can connect the mission statement to what people have to do in their daily roles within an organization, now you've got a mission statement because it encompasses the whole organization. But I agree with Erin, where oftentimes they do that mission statement at the executive level, some marketing drivel, et cetera, and it doesn't really mean anything. How do you put a mission statement in practice when I'm here trying to sell laptops to a purchasing department that's in the basement of a higher education institution? That's not going to be a way to articulate a mission statement. Conversely, if you connect that mission statement to what people have to do daily and will go through a brick wall to get it done, now you've got a mission statement that means something to the employees.
And I think you nailed it. That's so funny. He goes into it and says that, you need to have some, what he calls mad goals. I think he referenced another author for it, but it's got to be memorable. It's got to have alignment with the organization and your core values, and it's got to be doable. And he said it could be something that is like you mentioned, Erin. Mission statements tend to be convoluted marketing BS fluff. The most successful organizations that have a solid mission statement, if you will, have been able to do it based on their core values, and that it's an executable, that the company can see that end goal and understand what that goal is, and they all can march towards it. So on that note, because I know we could keep going and talking, and I think we're getting up on time here. So final thoughts on Joel. What was your takeaway, Emery, on what actionable items can you actually take away from yesterday's discussion? 1 bullet point's fine.
Yeah, deliver on promises. That's one of the key 4s that he talked about, and I think that is the key to success. Is he has clearly delivered on the promises he makes to an organization, and in a leadership capacity, once you commit to something, it's your responsibility to deliver on it. Mm-hmm. And make that deal with your employees. You say, if I do X, you do Y, and then it's as a leader, your job to do X.
Thank you. That's good. Erin, what about you? What's your one actionable item that you're taking away?
Decision making. So he talked about just, instead of hemming and hawing in an organization, or I mean, I can do this in life too, just make a decision and go with it. And then course correct as needed. But it is such a waste of brain space and a waste of, you need to analyze 100% before you just jump into a decision, but really focus on just making a decision and then seeing what works and what doesn't versus getting all wrapped up in what could work or what might not work. Just do it.
Excellent. My takeaway, he said this, which blew me away, and I'm kind of scared at the same time, but I know I need to charge forward, is what he said. But take that exercise, you guys, of asking your 5 closest friends and colleagues that know you and have them describe you, and what they think your core values are. And where he says where the intersection is, that's what you are. And then areas that you weren't identified as that you thought might be your core values, you need to work towards that. And so don't be surprised if you two get an email for me asking what the 3 core values. But that's okay whether we take it seriously or not. But I'm really kind of intrigued to see what kind of results we get on that. And that was my immediate action item, because I need to sit down and do some soul searching on what my core values are. And I think that's a great start to figure that out, especially as we continue our entrepreneurial leadership path. So on that note, Emery, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
If anyone wants to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
EG2IT.com and Emery Geosits on LinkedIn. Thanks.
No worries. And Erin, do you have any parting thoughts?
No, another great week.
Excellent.
But if you need a podcast, innovationmediaenterprises.com.
It's kind of what we're doing here. On that note, so Global Leaders Organization is a international global digital platform, as well as local chapters. So Erin and I are the Dallas chairs, and we run the organization here for local chapters. So we are building our community here, building Dallas strong. Emery is a member. For those, if you check out withglo.com, withglo.com, and you don't see your own city, hey, you can kick up and start up your own chapter as well. For more information on that, again, withglo.com. Our next event is with Connie Podesta on June 18th. And that is also when we are doing, we're starting to slowly open the doors. So we will be hosting a very intimate VIP only Dallas live stream. And we are going to share that out with the rest of the GLO membership, just to kind of slowly ease us back into, the one-on-one interaction. So any questions, you know where to find Erin Gregor or Syya Yasotornrat. There's only one Syya Yasotornrat, so Google it. I'm sure you'll find me somehow. But thanks all. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you for the next one on June 19th for the After Glow podcast.
Oh, June 19th.
Bye, everyone.